from Nigeria is being underpriced. Isn't this a problem from your experience?
There's no doubt about that it's underpricing. But what we are talking about, if there's a price control by the government, we used to have a commodity price control. What happened to the commodity board? That's what they need to bring back. It's the same government that created this commodity board. Yes, it's underpriced. And people just bring whatever they want to the market, but banning the, okay, you say you ban the foreign and buy for Nigeria also doing business in most of these advanced countries. How are we going to cope? There are supposed to be a balance of trade between a country and other countries while you are doing businesses. But for you to ban them, it's not going to be sustainable.
Okay, let's also look at this because we have some quotas who are saying that this is supposed to ensure food security for the nation, to even talk about exporting. That's because we have, that market. Now,
I don't think so. I believe there should be a competitions in the world. The foreigners are here to challenge us. And what are we doing to add value to what we are producing? Producing food and encouraging farmers. So the the foreigners are taking advantage. And I don't even believe that. How many foreigners are we even talking about that is mopping what we have? Go to the market, go to most of our local markets. You still find some of this food stuff. But some of them are getting rotten. But these white people or these foreigners, they came in to add value to what we are throwing away as garbage. 60% of our stuff end up in the garbage. And it's not supposed to be so. So we should be encouraging. You can imagine how many people that these foreign people that you're talking about, how many people they employ, how many Nigerians that were employed. So there's more to be done to really improve the food production in the country than to be banned some set of people from doing business or buy some of our farm produce. Like we should be encouraging them to come and do what we call the powder eggs. Some of our eggs, there's something they say is doing the glut. How can we say that's a glut when there's not enough eggs in the circulation? So they should encourage these white people, okay, don't take this into your country. Bring the industry, bring your machineries to the country and produce and employ our people instead of just buying
a certain country. So I mean, don't you think that this is supposed to protect? Because I'm thinking that this is actually good, that the government is trying to, to protect the agricultural sector, the farmers right now from exploitation of...
Another government will get bad in the something for their business. The government should be addressing where the headsman come to the farm and eat the farm produce with no compensation, with no insurance to pay for it. So to make farmers sell it to the foreigners, they are not doing it willingly, but for them to be able to get something out of what they have in the farm before the cow or the cattle come and eat them. That is what I'm saying. I'm not saying the policy is not good. I'm not saying the policy should not be implemented, but can it be implemented? Can it be sustainable? It's just the summer stock policy that I'm talking about here.
All right. So, how do you think this will affect you on a day-to-day basis, in practical terms?
Definitely, it's affecting. Right now, it's even affecting me that I have a whole lot of pineapples in the farm. I'm talking almost about 50 acres of pineapple that I have in the market, that I have in my farm. I'm looking for middlemen to buy it because the security is not there for me. Sometimes I even try to look at the time that I have to go to my farm so that I will not be kidnapped. So some of our colleagues in my area have been kidnapped. So when you already planted this thing that take over a year to grow, and you find somebody that says, okay, I'm going to mop up everything in your farm. Are you going to be dictating that, oh, you're a foreigner, I will not sell to you? So until the government can really take care of all the infrastructure deficit, like the security and lights, we could be able to process our farm produce. But the conditions there is not even conducive. Where there's no diesel, where there's no electricity to even do your processing. With my 50 acres of land of pineapple, I should be processing juices. But come to my area, there's no light. Now, if I want to go into diesel processing, you know how much the diesel is now? 600 naira plus. So these are the reasons that most of the farmers, we rather sell to the middlemen instead of getting into unnecessary debts, because some of us take loan. So if you can understand that, is this sustainable? With the kind of government we have, government come, government go. Another government will come tomorrow, and some of these foreigners, if they really invested in their politics.
Prince Wale, don't we have,
Yes.
I mean, or you're an agriculturalist, and
Sure.
there should be, because, I mean, you have different association. Don't you have some kind of association who should be speaking and protecting the interest of these farmers? We have seen that
We have so many bodies, we have so many organizations bordering along the agricultural sector, but some of them have been hijacked. Let me be very honest with you. We have so many, we have Poultry Farmer Association, we have All Farmers Association, we have rice production, we have catfish, looking for buyers. And most of the local farmers we have also, they are not different from these foreign buyers, but they will buy from you instead of them to pay you on time to go back to the farm and do the right thing. It might take them 3 months, 4 months, 6 months to pay back for your produce. So when you see a foreigner coming to mop everything, it might be of a lower price, but it's better for you to get something lower than you get everything and damaged or destroyed in your farm. So not that we don't have any association, we do have a lot of associations.
okay.
Right, interesting. These people called the middlemen, last year the president blamed them for the rising cost of local foodstuff. He accused them of creating artificial scarcity. It's the middlemen the president is banking on to have an increased price for our products before they're taken out of the country. Who are these middlemen, and why are they so important? Do you interface with them, interact with them, regularly as a farmer in Nigeria?
These middlemen are not foreigners. They are Nigerians like us. Like sometimes they bag out, either you repackage as a whole or you add value by processing. So when you talk of middlemen, if you have your money today, yes, you can be a middleman. You can be one of the middlemen to come and buy the produce and repackage and do whatever you want. But what I'm I'm very sure of this more. I've seen this several times, especially when I was the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We go around to see things for ourselves. We are the problem of ourselves. It's not the foreigners.
All right.
If the government really see that they really need to help farmers, it should be within us first and see that the right thing is being done within our citizens, within the so-called middlemen. 90% of the middlemen you are talking about Nigeria is the middlemen that buy this thing and go and sell it to the foreigners. Most of the foreigners does not come to the farm directly at all.
All right.
Okay.
I know all this. I know all this for facts.
Prince Wale Oyekoya, let's talk about the fact that the agricultural sector, I mean, it's something that's been on the news over time. The fact that the farm produce that we get to export outside of Nigeria usually does not meet international standards. We get to that point where we hear that several goods have been rejected because they don't meet the international standards for the market. Why is that the issue, especially with Nigeria?
As I said, it's still bogged down on the policy of our government. It's still bogged down on the leadership. Because, yes, I remember so many times that 47 of our items were banned in the UK. The UK that's supposed to be our ally, that's supposed to be our partner, that's supposed to be our colonial masters. The same thing in US. The same thing I remember one time when, okay, if this is the problem, why can't you solve our problem internally? So for other countries rejecting our produce, it's not the farmers, it's the policy. And if you look at the policy we are talking about, is all these conglomerate companies, blue chips are moving out of Nigeria as a procedures you take. You see that when you go to some of these export promotion councils, instead of them to do the when you are trying to export your produce, they don't really do much of the necessary inspection, but they just sit down in the office as long as the price is right. These are the policies that need to be changed. You can imagine how many vehicles got damaged with the bad import of fuel that entered into the country. I have so many friends that their vehicles got damaged. So the same thing when you are trying to export some of this farm produce. What you go through from these people alone, some of these people got rotten before you even take off to the other country. You can imagine a perishable item that's supposed to live within a day, within 24 hours. Sometimes it takes about 2 weeks before you get approval from the NACO, from the airport, from everywhere, from where we are going to export this thing. It takes weeks. So by the time it's leaving our shore, by the time we get to the other shore right there, It's already rotting. It's already getting bad.
All right, we have to leave it at that, I'm afraid. Prince Wallo Yekoya, thank you very much for your time. He is an agriculturalist and the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Bama Farms. Really on the hands and practical analysis is giving us on this particular issue. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right, all right. We have more this morning on the breakfast. Of course, the Senate saying no to President Buhari. We have a guest analyst joining us to discuss this. Mercy, expunging Section 84, and the Senate said no.
Well, we'll just find out, because this is actually a rare, case with the Ninth Assembly. I mean, looking at the fact that the Ninth Assembly has been described as a rubber stamp. Well, let's find out what went, different. I mean, what really happened. We'll be right back after this time. Please stay with us.
Life can be fun and rewarding, but it also comes with some risk. As in business, you win some, you lose some. And that's why you need to be wise in the choices you make. It's like placing a bet. Again, you need to be wise.
While others, usually the silent majority, would be quite happy.
Equally confessed. A 500 naira they collect am. You don't take it for granted that, oh, I've paid for 10 years, there's a delay here and there. They need to be notified. There has to be a plan for payment. But when you don't talk to the brokers, when you don't talk to the insurance company, and you sit down in your house expecting, I've been paying all of this while, if I don't pay now,
Even for a month.
Even for
A
2
day.
days. even for a day, because if your contract expires today, that's the expiration of it.
By President Muhammad Buhari, seeking the amendment of Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. Section 84, subsection 12 prevents political office holders from contesting for elections from the party primary level without resigning. The bill had scaled the first reading on Tuesday, despite court order barring Senate from acting on it. The request was rejected by Senator Yahaya Abdullahi, who led the debate for the second reading of the bill on Wednesday. The senator kicked against it and voted no when it put to voice vote by the president of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan. We have our guest joining us, Ernest Ireke, who is the coordinator of Yaga Africa. It's good to have you join us this morning, Ernest.
Thank you very much. Good morning. And just to clarify, Coordinator Yaga Africa Center for Legislative Engagement.
All right, thanks for that. Let's get your thoughts on this one. Did this come to you as a surprise, looking at the fact that over time, the Ninth Assembly has been described as a rubber stamp?
Well, not exactly. It didn't come as a surprise. I wasn't surprised because if you pick the Electoral Act 2022, you would find that before now there were moves by lawmakers to put some safeguards in the law of candidates would only be through the direct primary method. Now, as read out in Section 84, sub 12, that political appointees that do not contest primaries if they are still holding offices or they do not serve as delegates, to vote in congresses and conventions of political parties. So that's a safeguard put there to ensure, one, that there is a level playing field for everybody. Then two, also equally as part of ensuring a level playing field, to ensure that the executive, for instance, there are two issues in that subsection. One is that if you're a political appointee, you cannot be a voting delegate in a Congress or a convention. Now, you can also not stand as an aspirant in a Congress or a convention. So when you look at the two things, it tries to ensure that in favor of the executive, because over the years, we have seen a situation where governors, for instance, will appoint a retinue of aides, and these aides become delegates in primary elections, an appointed position, a fair and free process. So in a way, it is to ensure that internally within the runnings of political parties, that the field is made level for everybody within, within the party, to have a sense, or this sense of justice being done, fairness, this sense of fairness in the nomination process.
All right, Ernest Reke, Young Africa, and yourself, in as far as the what you do with that organization is concerned, I'm sure you have been engaging with legislators and also with Nigerians on the
self-interest of these lawmakers. Of course, they are politicians, they have political interest, they have political ambition, and therefore you cannot take away the fact of their enlightened self-interest. As we mentioned earlier, recall that they had insisted that nominations would be only through direct method prevented. And so while others may benefit from it, I also feel that there is this idea of this enlightened self-interest to ensure that lawmakers also, as politicians themselves, equally protect themselves. But I also believe that there is a larger picture to this, aside from the enlightened self-interest of the lawmakers themselves. Yes, some may see it as a way of trying to protect themselves and their political interests and ambitions, but generally and ultimately, the nation benefits from this because, like we said, there is this idea that it gives to everyone this sense of fairness. But then again, on the flip side, you also find out that or in the state houses of assembly. So in that regard, you may not wish away the enlightened self-interest of lawmakers, as you rightly pointed out.
You talked about the lawmakers and, of course, the fact that they can still contest. We look at the power of incumbency, which this is talking about. Would you agree that the greatest beneficiaries of this power of incumbency when it comes to elections are the elected officials, apart from the appointed officials? So you have those in the legislature and you have those in the executive, the governors, and the change in what we're trying to change.
Will still hold offices and run for positions as they desire, state governors, the president equally. And this is what confers that power of incumbency and the advantages that these positions will confer on them while running for offices. And so you haven't ultimately, cured this problem of conferring undue advantages on political office holders, particularly elected political office holders, because they will still be in offices, they will still be in their various offices while contesting for another office. But I think ultimately what this provision tries to prevent, and probably the idea or philosophy behind it, is to prevent, like we mentioned earlier, this situation where the executive appoints a huge or a very large number of aides, and then they become delegates in congresses and conventions. And then, of course, we know that when these aides or political office appointees, become delegates in elections, of course, we can determine the outcome of these conventions or congresses even before they are conducted. So I think that is largely what the lawmakers tried to cure there, to prevent the nomination processes from, if you like, from being tilted in the advantage of the executive. But if it is about power of incumbency, the power of incumbency still remains, and the undue advantages it confers on political office holders, elected political office holders, will still be there with us for a very long time. We will see them making use of state apparatus, the police, including resources of the state to run elections. So we will still have this challenge with us, even with 84 sub 12 of the Electoral Act 2022.
So moving forward now, because we cannot take out the fact that the power of incumbency constantly plays in our election, and in 2023, I mean, we can really not take that out. You see in a state where you have a governor, and a governor defects from a particular political party, and then you have all of the political appointees defecting, and then you begin to ask yourself, what is really going on here? But that's the power of incumbency. So do we need to look at having new legislation, or what do we need to do to begin to curb the excesses? Because at the end of the day, it is entirely not a fair play for democracy.
Yes, I agree with you. It is not fair play for democracy that somebody is in office and continues to use the advantages of that office. Now, what I believe, States of America, but he complained severally, he cried out severally, that the apparatus of the state various institutions of the state were witch hunting him. Now, that is a situation you cannot have in Nigeria because, for instance, during elections, you will find out that the police, for instance, will begin to act as if it is the militant wing of the party in power. Now, that shouldn't be the case. Now, so what we need is really not about legislation any longer, because I think the laws of the land are clear. What we need is to begin to find a way of strengthening these institutions and then winning them away from, from this attachment to regimes and individuals. And so if we ensure that these institutions are independent, if we ensure that they see themselves as institutions of the states and not as institutions of individuals or political parties, then we can conduct elections without fearing that the security agencies, for instance, will act in a way that will...
We have the INEC guidelines, but we also have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is clear on the requirements for contesting public office at various levels. You look at Section 65, Section 106, Section 131, Section 177, and so on and so forth, Section 182. Isn't there a possibility that any Nigerian can challenge this INEC, this Electoral Act amendment in court and say, see, you can't deny me of my rights to contest the election as
12 of the Electoral Act 2022 is concerned, because some persons, just as you have said, and it was on this basis that the president asked the National Assembly, to amend that particular provision, that it's at variance with constitutional provision, which requires a minimum of, I think, about 30 or 35 days for a political appointee to resign his or her position before he or she can run for a particular office. Okay. So it will be interesting to find out what the judiciary will do with that particular
we have to go.
section of the Electoral Act.
We have to go. Thank you very much, Reke.
On Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Messi Boko. See you tomorrow.
And I'm Kofi Patel. See you tomorrow. Good morning.